So we are going to learn about the diversity in the living world. So we know on the earth there are millions of species of plants and animals, and they show variations at different levels. That is called biodiversity. Diverse kinds of plants and animals living in diverse conditions that we call the biodiversity on earth. So at a place also, total number of organisms we are taking, that is the biodiversity of that area. So we know there are millions of species of plants and animals. How we can handle all this? So it is not easy to study about these millions of species. So there should be some way to organize them into different groups for their easy study. So for the ease of this, there should be certain ways to place them in groups. So before that, the first step of this is to study about their characters. So each organism we are taking, we should know about what are the characters of this organisms. That process we call it characterization, studying about the different characteristic features of that particular living organism. So we just observe the different characteristic features of that particular living organism. And based on that characteristic features, we identify that particular living organism, whether it is a type of unicellular organism or multicellular or plant or animal, whatever. Based on that characteristic features, we identify that particular organism. That step we can say as identification. Identification. After identification, we have to give them a name. So that process is called nomenclature. So giving a name, particular name to the organism. When we are coming to the name, we know different types of living organisms in our locality, and we are giving them a name, and the same organism may be found in another locality and it may be known by another name there. So it will create confusion. So for the purpose of standardizing the names, all living organisms are given a scientific name which is known all over the world. So suppose we are using a scientific name of an organism. So any person in any part of the world can identify that organism. So if we are using the name given in our local area, so another person in another area can't identify that. So for the convenience of that standardizing the names, the use of nomenclature with the scientific names is used. So giving scientific, so you may be familiar with the scientific name, few scientific names, at least human beings it is Homo sapiens. Then mango, Mangifera indica. So we'll come to that points. So nomenclature, identification, nomenclature is naming of living organisms. Then after naming them, they are put or grouped into different categories. So when they are grouped into different categories only, we can easily identify them and study about them. Suppose in the library, if all the books are just mixed up, and if I tell you to go and take one book from that biology book, is it easy for you? It is very difficult. So suppose all the books are arranged according to subject wise in different corners or different shelves with the class written on that, subject written on. Easily you can retrieve the book or take the book from that library. Same way, if you are arranging all these animals or living organisms into particular categories based on certain features, it will be easy for us to study about each one or identify each one. So that step we call it classification. So classifying organisms into certain convenient categories is called classification. Grouping organisms into convenient categories is called classification. So first one, characterization, studying the characteristic features of that particular organism. After that, it is identify, that is, it is such and such an organism. Then such and such, what are the features of that? Then after that, the nomenclature is coming, giving names to the organism. So coming to a nomenclature, the nomenclature which is nowadays followed, it is called the binomial nomenclature. So the use of using this nomenclature, that is giving scientific names to the organisms to be identifying any part of the world with a standard or a single name. So with that name, we can identify in any part of the world, any person can identify that this is such a subspecies. So the nomenclature, naming of the organisms, it has certain criteria. So botanical names, that is the plant names, there are criteria set up by the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. It is, in short, it is known as ICBN. So International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. So this deals with the criteria giving for the naming of plants. Then ICZN. So animals, they are named according to the criteria set by the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. So these two, based on the criteria set by these two, only the naming of organisms occurs. And this naming is done, that is the naming, it is called binomial naming or binomial nomenclature set up by Carolus Linnaeus. Binomial system of nomenclature. Binomial, it is called binomial, giving two names. So scientific names, you know, when we are writing the scientific names, suppose this is scientific name of man, human being, Homo sapiens, or mango, Mangifera indica. So you can see two names are there. So the scientific names, they consist of two names. So they are referred to as binomial nomenclature. The nomenclature where two names are given, and this was set up by Carolus Linnaeus. And these two names, the first name is called generic name or the genus name, and the second name is called the specific epithet. So the binomial name or scientific system of scientific naming consists of two names. First name is called the generic name, second one is called the specific epithet. So in this way, the binomial system of nomenclature came to existence, and this system of nomenclature actually it was easy to study about the different living organisms in different parts of the world, by easy identification of that by the scientific names. Now there are certain rules for writing the scientific names or rules of nomenclature. We come to the rules of nomenclature. So the first one is, they are written in Latin, originated from Latin, and second one, they consist of two names. They consist of two names, that is a specific epithet and a generic name. Third one, the first letter of the generic name, that is the first letter of the scientific name, generic name is written in capital. So if it is written Homo sapiens, you can see H will be capital, Homo, and the genus name starts with a small letter. Then you can see I am underlining all this. So when this written. When it is hand written, it will be underlined separately. When it is printed, it will be printed in italics. So you can see, you can just observe any of the books, if the scientific names are written, it will be written in italics. And if we are writing it hand written, it should be always written separately with underlined separately. And the first letter of this genus name should start with a capital letter, and the first letter of the species name will be beginning with a small letter. And so scientific name, they consist of two names called generic name and the specific epithet. They are arising from the Latin, and they have two names. First name is called the generic name, which starts with a capital letter. Second one called the specific epithet, starts with a small letter. And when it is printed, it should be printed in italics. When hand written, it should be separately underlined. Okay, so these are the rules of nomenclature. So after naming, we are classifying these organisms into different groups. So classifying the organisms into convenient categories. So that process, or grouping them into convenient categories, we call it classification. So each category suppose we are given many plants and a few names of a few animals. In a mixed way you are given, and you are asked to classify them. So first you will do one thing. First you will classify them separately as plants and animals, and put all the plants under plants, all the animals under the animals category. Then in the plants itself, you will be asked to, you may be given the names of certain fruits or vegetables or cereals or grains. There again you can classify that plants into fruits, one category, cereals, vegetables, another category. So again you are classifying them into still another convenient groups. Similarly, animals, again you can classify into birds, then aquatic animals, fishes. So like that you again classify them. So whatever ways you classify the organisms into convenient categories, we call it classification, or group them into convenient, place them in convenient categories. These categories, there is a name for these categories. Those categories are called taxa. So plant is one taxa. You have grouped organisms into plants and animals. This is also a taxa. This is another taxa. Under plants, again you have classified plants into vegetables, cereals. So all this is another taxa. This is another taxa. Animals, under that simply birds are there. This is another taxa. So each category, we call it taxa. Scientific term for this is taxa. So classification is grouping organisms into convenient categories, and each category scientifically is termed taxa. The scientific term for these categories is called taxa, and the process of classification is called taxonomy. Okay, so the scientific term for the categories is called taxa, and the process of classification is called taxonomy. So based on the characters, all living organisms can be categorized into different categories. So this process of classification, we call it taxonomy. And taxonomy involves what all things? So as we discussed earlier, characterization, studying the characteristic features, identification, classification, and nomenclature. So it involves, taxonomy involves characterization, identification, classification and nomenclature. Okay, and the branch of science which deals with it is, classification is called systematics. The branch of science which deals with this classification, we call it systematics. So the process of classification is called taxonomy, and the branch of science which is called systematics. The word systematics came from a Latin word systema. That means systematic arrangement of organisms. So word systematics comes from the Latin word systema. Systema, which means systematic arrangement of organisms. And Carolus Linnaeus, he used the term Systema Naturae for the title of the book he published. So it was known as Systema Naturae. So in this way, taxonomy is the process of classification, and systematics is a branch of study of this classification. So with this, we come to the end of this today's topic. So notes I will be giving, take down the notes from the video itself. In the form of slides I will be giving the notes, and definitions separately I will be giving. But take down, make sure you have written in your notebooks and study it on that day itself.
Now, let us go through the important points.
Diverse kinds of
Diversity in the living world
on the earth.
So diverse kinds of living organisms are present on the earth, which forms the biodiversity of the earth. The living world is rich in variety. The number and types of organisms present on earth refers to biodiversity. In order to facilitate the study of kinds and diversity of organisms, biologists have evolved certain rules and principles for identification, nomenclature, and classification of organisms. The process of classification is taxonomy. Taxonomy deals with the identification and classification of the organisms. Based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different categories called taxonomic categories or taxa. Identification: the determination of an organism being identical with or similar to another already known organism is known as identification. The determination can be done with the aid of literature or by comparing with other organisms of known identity. So literature means with the help of certain books where we have collected the information already about an organism. We'll compare the new organism's features with that already existing one. Then nomenclature is possible. Nomenclature means naming is possible only when an organism is described correctly. Classification. It is the process by which organisms are grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. So groups like plants, animals, species, mammals, etc. are convenient categories. So all these groups, if you are getting it, you are grouping them into different categories. These convenient categories, this process of grouping into convenient categories, we call it classification. The scientific term for these categories is taxa. The taxa can indicate categories at different levels. So plants, if we are grouping them, plants is a taxa. Again, we are grouping the plants into flowering plants, non-flowering plants. So again, that is the taxa. Or vegetables, again taxa. That different vegetables coming under that, we call it taxa. So that's a scientific term for these categories is called taxa. Nomenclature. The process of giving scientific names to organisms is known as nomenclature. The use of common names creates confusion. To avoid this confusion, scientific names are given to organisms. By this process, an organism is recognized by the same name all over the world. Binomial nomenclature. The most acceptable system of nomenclature was proposed by Carolus Linnaeus. He proposed to name the organism in two words. First word is the genus name or generic name, and second word is the species name or specific epithet. This is known as binomial nomenclature, giving two names for an organism. This system of providing a name with two components is called binomial nomenclature. The rules of nomenclature are provided in the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature (ICBN) for plants and International Code of Zoological Nomenclature (ICZN) for animals. This system is followed universally till today. The scientific name ensures that each organism has only one name. The description of any organism should enable people in any part of the world to arrive at the same name. This system was first published by Linnaeus in his book Systema Naturae. Universal rules of nomenclature. Scientific names are generally in Latin. It should be in italics if printed and separately underlined and if it is handwritten. First name represents genus name and second name species name. The genus name should always begin with a capital letter while the species name starts with a small letter. Name of the author who first described it is added at the end. Example, Mangifera indica Linn. So here Mangifera indica is the scientific name of mango. So here you can see that Linn. What does that Linn indicate? It indicates that this species was first described by Linnaeus. Systematics. It is a scientific study of the kinds and diversity of living organisms and the existing relationship among them. It is the science of diversity of organisms. It is derived from Latin word systema, which means systematic arrangement of organisms. Now with this we came to the end of this session. I'll be giving you some questions. Try to answer those questions, find out the answers and write it in the notebook. And read your textbook also up to the topic where we are covered today. Okay? Thank you.